Hey guys, I've been thinking about Skyrim's night sky again. This time, I wanted to look at the moons, Masser and Secunda. You might have noticed that the moons in the Elder Scrolls games change their orientation on different nights, but I wanted to look at what exactly these changes are and come up with some sort of calendar. This video was actually inspired by a comment on a Reddit post I did when I made the constellation video. So thank you to King Joe for the inspiration, for your permission to use some visualizations, and for doing a lot of great work on the subject already, especially when it comes to connecting these moon cycles to Khajiit fur stocks. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that too. Before we start, I just wanted to say thank you all for your support on my videos. I am extremely blown away by the reception I've gotten, and your comments have been so kind and insightful and make me laugh. I love hearing from you. I had to take a bit of a personal break due to some major life changes, but stick around for the end of the video. I'd love to catch up with you. And thanks for staying around and staying curious. So, ready for more? Let Season 2 of Leftover Lore begin. First, let's do a bit of moon history. Elder Scrolls 1 introduced us to the first appearance of Masser and Secunda. Wait, really? Yeah, depending on the province and time of year, you can see this sprite of what appears to be two moons descending in the sky on a clear night. As for when, it depends on the season. For example, they'll consistently appear in Elsewhere's northeastern sky at 6:45 in the winter and 9:30 in the spring. No phases here, but if you stick around a bit, you'll eventually see another regular cycling moon sprite traveling around in the sky. This is when calculations get weird. But like Skyrim's shifting constellations, the moon shifts its position in the sky every night. Not only does it change cycles every few nights, but due to some nice math, we can see it again roughly in the same position, same phase, about every 2 months. As for which is Masser and which is Secunda, not gonna question them too much, it's Arena. But at least we get a globe confirming 2 moons was at least in someone's canon at Bethesda. Now, you might be surprised that for all Daggerfall improved upon Arena, Masser and Secunda never actually appeared in game, except on the death screen. But they do actually exist in game, in a behind-the-scenes, very calculated mechanic. Lycanthropy was introduced in Daggerfall. You could be infected by a werewolf or werebore. On a full moon, you would be transformed, but what full moon? Well, hard-coded, full moons are scheduled to happen twice in a 32-day period. This is to simulate Nirn's 2 moons. 4 days after the first full moon, the second full moon occurs. 28 days later, the first moon appears again, and the pattern repeats. Cool, right? Well, we got even more moons to look at. And would you look at that, in the Elder Scrolls Redguard adventure game, they show up clear as can be. Thanks, Todd.
Who's laughing now?
We had a lot to say about the Dwemer Orrery in the Constellations video, but there's not a lot of moon lore that happens here in Redguard, and unfortunately the Orrery is no exception, and doesn't even feature the moons on the Orrery like Oblivion's DLC does. But they do have the first cat-like Khajiit character featured in Elder Scrolls games, so maybe you could say something about the Lunar Lattice here. There are a few other minor appearances around this time period. We have a shot of Masser and Secunda in the comic released with Redguard, and in Battlespire we have several shots like this, showing the moons existing in a plane other than Mundus. Morrowind, as you might have guessed, gave a little more love to our moons. Not only did we get a ton of new information, but we got some objects floating in the sky there. Starting on the 16th of Last Seed, Masser and Secunda can be found as a full moon rising from the north, with Secunda catching up to Masser from behind. It's pretty clear that the 2 moons don't share a congruent path, so you'll see Secunda appear to pass Masser as the days go by. It does seem to catch back up eventually though. On some other observations, the moons will always share the same phase. And with the exception of our first in-game day, the phases cycle every 3 revolutions. I say revolutions and not nights because the moons are also a little slower than the day-night cycle, so there are actually some nights where you won't see the moons at all. When they're near the sun in the daytime, they'll also disappear. It seems very well thought out, but chaotic, maybe. Let's see how other games built on this. Funny enough, Morrowind's strange angles with Masser and Secunda seem to have been emulated in Oblivion's Orrery, which, unlike Redguard's Orrery, features Masser and Secunda at full rotation around Nirn. Their orbits are shifted a few degrees normal from each other while having plenty of opportunity to intersect. So yeah, it does seem very similar to Morrowind's sky here. But when we get to Oblivion's overworld, this is not the case at all. Like Morrowind, we have Masser reliably changing its cycle every 3 nights, but now Secunda is revolving around the horizon once every 20 hours. This effectively gives it 5 different positions you can see it in relation to Masser, depending on the night. As we'll find out, this system carried over and is the exact same as Skyrim's. The moons don't always share the same phase every night, but we'll get to that later. And something else that's cool is normally we'd exit Oblivion's starting dungeon the morning of 27th of last seed, making our first encounter with the moons in this position later that night. But we can actually COC out of the starting prison, showing the game starting at 1 AM with full moons aligned the night before. Nothing changed with the moons when it came to Skyrim, which still has Masser at 3 reliable nights per phase, with Secunda loosely following that cycle in the same 20-hour revolutions. Only difference is that now, game starts on the 17th of last seed. We'll talk about the mechanics in a little more detail soon, but something I thought was funny is that people have pointed out that the moons have gotten a little bigger with each installment of the Elder Scrolls games, so maybe we should all be very afraid about that. I really want to give mention to the Elder Scrolls Online, which has actually become my favorite iteration of the moon mechanics, if only because the day-night cycles are fixed and last real-life hours. Yeah, real-life hours. One 24-hour day in ESO equals 20,955 seconds in real time, or 5.82 hours. A full cycle of Masser and Secunda equals 30 in-game days, or 7.25 real-life days. This means that every phase should mathematically stick around for 21.8 real-life hours. There's actually a lot more to unpack with ESO, like the tides and the werewolf vampire mechanic. I don't want to get too crazy in my explanation here so we can focus on Skyrim, but let me know if we got some ESO fans out there who want to see a bigger lunar project for ESO. I also want to give a quick mention to the Elder Scrolls Legends, which I do not count this mechanic as gospel lore, but the Moons of Elsewhere expansion gave certain Khajiit cards power depending on whether the moons are currently waxing or waning on the board. So that's the story of Masser and Secunda. What I find amazing about it is the devs' dedication to improving the mechanics of it over the years, just like the constellations. So let's zoom in on Skyrim and see exactly how these moons work. In order to make a lunar calendar for Skyrim, we need to look a little deeper into the mechanics. So we could just sit through every night, which I ended up doing anyway to fact check, but I wanted to see where the pattern was. Wouldn't the same moon combination show up again pretty soon anyway? Well, no, actually. And the reason why is because while Masser cycles reliably change every 3 nights, Secunda having a 20-hour revolution instead of a 24-hour one like Masser makes this cycle alignment less predictable. Theoretically, the moons should share each other's cycle every night, and for the most part they do. But if Masser's cycle changes when it's below the horizon and Secunda's up there, Secunda can't just instant change before our eyes, even if it happens to be above the horizon. So due to whatever strange math for Secunda's revolution, Secunda's phase can be one ahead of Masser's on some nights. Okay, but there's still gotta be some sort of pattern, right? So how can we predict this? Due to Secunda's 20-hour revolution, it can have 5 possible positions relative to Masser. We know Masser has a 3-day cycle before its next phase, and will always hit its lunar zenith around midnight. On Masser's first 2 nights, Masser and Secunda will reliably share their phases together. On the 3rd night, however, if Secunda is in one of these last 2 positions, it will turn to the next phase preemptively. This is how we get Secunda's weird pattern of phase shifting. You can make all kinds of mathematical conclusions, like the pattern of how long Secunda spends on each phase, but I'll let you come up with some of your own. Now, I love spreadsheets and all, but these patterns were essential for making the calendar itself. After observing just 2 in-game weeks of the moons in Skyrim, you could theoretically use these patterns to map the rest of the calendar without needing to reference the game every night. In fact, this mathematical jumble of phases and positions does actually repeat every 120 days. Exactly. By 15th of Evening Star, 120 days have passed since game start, and Masser and Secunda will once again have the same positions as they did on 17th of last seed, once again on the first day of the full moon cycle. Pretty cool, right? I also wanted to be able to track when certain moon phases align, which I've done in this dark pink. A pattern I found really cool was that within 1 year, the full moons will align 3 times, followed by the new moons 3 times, followed by the full moons, followed by the new moons again. This gave me a really cool imaginary sense that the moons were taking turns, dominating through the seasons. Maybe if you had a lycanthrope player who would only turn when the full moons were aligned, they would have a good several months of the year where they wouldn't have to worry about anything in this case. You can try predictions like these for yourself, see if you can predict the next next moon cycle and Secunda's next position. You too could be a master of the skies. Unfortunately, there's a caveat here. Whenever a game is reloaded, Secunda's position changes.
What a complicated situation.
Sometimes the cycles change completely. I tried reloading in a number of ways, pretty much always getting a messed up result. In early save games, it worked fine, but later games have Secunda reloading one position later, Masser changing phases completely. Yeah, we got some issues here. That means that unfortunately there is no one calendar that can be made to accurately reflect all save games out there, which means this calendar is almost useless for typical gameplay purposes. So that's unfortunate. But if you believe that 17th of last seed's moon phase, when we select new game from the main menu, is the canonical moon phase for that day in 4E201, then this is the calendar for you. I will leave a link for this thing in the description. I've enabled the ability to make a copy if you'd like to improve it or keep it for your own drive. If you're a Google Sheets wizard and want to make massive improvements, I would love to see what you've made, and I'll add yours to the description if you'd like. There are a lot of really cool lore opportunities and ideas you can create when you're paying just a little bit more attention to the moons. But what about some of the lore that's already out there? Well, to answer that, let's take a trip to elsewhere. You've been traveling across the desert. You're an outsider to these lands. You know of Masser and Secunda and their special patterns. The Khajiit know these moons too. They call them Joan and Jode, elemental aspects of the ja-Kha'jay, the Lunar Lattice. As a lot of you know, the Khajiit take different forms if they're born under a certain moon combination at birth. These first stocks are actually pretty well documented in the lore, and while this probably started as a way to explain Khajiit model changing between games, Elder Scrolls Legends and Elder Scrolls Online really went for it to give these first stocks some love. Theoretically, we should actually have a lot more variations of Masser and Secunda phases in the games than we actually see. According to the Lunar Lattice, these are the possible moon orientations to be born under, but these are the only moon orientations that exist in any Elder Scrolls games. And let's not even go there with the main, who needs a third moon to get that amazing hair. Our first source for the Lunar Lattice came from the first pocket guide to the Empire, which noted that over 20 forms were possible. This would actually add up with the moon phases, but the more foundational piece of Khajiit lore, in review with 3 booksellers, which is what first defined the first stocks, limits us to 17. These forms seem to have embedded themselves into in-game lore, but without half moons, it doesn't exactly add up. In fact, the 2 half-moon phases don't even appear in the Lunar Lattice like they do in the games. Even Elder Scrolls Online subscribes to the half moon, so there's really not much to link these together. But that's not to say some amazing math isn't possible in this lore version of the Lunar Lattice. I gotta mention King Joe64 from Reddit here, who's done some amazing work plotting his idea of a lore-based Lunar Lattice, going in so far as to create a Masser and Secunda simulation. I'll also quickly mention and link a similar project on reimagining the Lunar Lattice done by LyhliTheLuminescent on DeviantArt, also with an incredible chart and write-up. I love this one because they decree that some Khajiit born under the half moon have certain abilities like saber-toothed canines, filling in that gap that the original Lattice made. If you're a Khajiit nut, these are the resources for you. I'll leave a few links to their work in the description, so yeah, go check them out. I'm also going to leave my Skyrim calendar in the description. Feel free to use it or build from it, and leave a comment letting me know what you love about the moons in the Elder Scrolls games. Any mechanics you want to learn more about? Stay curious, and I'll see you next time. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end of the Moons video. Yes, Leftover Lore is coming back. I'm going to do some more episodes. I'm going to try to hit around 5. That just seems like a good season number. If there's more support after that, then yeah, I'll definitely do some more. And maybe throw in a new series in there. Maybe, who knows? But basically, I just wanted to update you guys. I've been away because I've been going through a career change. And the way I'm doing it has kind of required me to hold 2 jobs at once. So that's also had me reconsider a lot of my priorities. On top of that, I've been with Beyond Skyrim, which has been a lot of fun. I've been doing that since about February last year, and I've been a part of the Arcane University, which is this really, really cool learn to modding Discord server from people of the modding community actively teaching people who want to learn. It's really, really cool. I will leave a link for that in the description for sure. So yeah, that's my plug. Go do that. Go do whatever you want. And I just want to thank you guys for all your support. It's been awesome. I love reading the comments. I'm looking forward to the next big video. I will see you next time.